Space was cold and empty. It always had been. Captain John Miller stood alone on the bridge of the Nova Dawn, watching stars drift past the viewport like scattered diamonds on black velvet. He liked the night watch. It gave him time to think. The ship hummed quietly around him. Most of the crew slept in their quarters. Only the essential systems ran at this hour, their soft beeps and whispers keeping him company in the darkness. John sipped his coffee and checked the time. 3 hours, until his shift ended. 3 hours of peaceful nothing. A sharp tone cut through the silence. John set down his mug and turned to the communications panel. The screen showed an incoming signal, but something was wrong. The wavelength pattern didn't match anything in their database. He touched the intercom button. Ross, report to the bridge. Lieutenant. Kate Ross arrived within minutes, her red hair still messy from sleep. She rubbed her eyes and moved to her station. What do we have, Captain? Unknown signal. Started 2 minutes ago. John pointed to the display. Ever seen anything like it? Kate's fingers danced over her controls. The signal appeared on her screen in waves of blue and green. She frowned and adjusted the parameters. That's not one of ours. Not Chinese or European either. The frequency modulation is... She paused. Sir, this is completely alien. John felt his pulse quicken. In 15 years of deep space exploration, he'd found many things. New asteroids, unusual radiation, even signs of basic life on distant moons. But never this. Never a signal that could only mean one thing. Intelligence. Distance? He asked. 3.7 light minutes. It's coming from that asteroid field we mapped yesterday. John leaned forward in his command chair. The signal pulsed on the screen with a strange rhythm. It wasn't mechanical or digital. It seemed almost organic, like a heartbeat. And with each pulse, it grew weaker. It's a distress call, he said. Quietly, Kate looked up. How can you be sure? Listen to it. John increased the audio output. The signal filled the bridge, a haunting series of tones that rose and fell like breathing. Something's dying out there. For a moment, they both stood in silence, listening to the alien cry for help echo through the darkness. John made his decision. Set course for intercept and wake up Doc Warner. Tell him we might have company. Kate's hands moved quickly over her station. Course laid in. Should I wake the rest of the crew? Not yet. Let's see what we're dealing with first. The Nova Dawn's engines came to life. The stars outside began to shift as the ship turned toward the asteroid field. John watched their destination grow larger on the navigation display, a cluster of rocks floating in the void, unremarkable except for the signal, emerging from within. Dr. Paul Warner stumbled onto the bridge 10 minutes later, still pulling on his jacket. The ship's chief medical officer was a thin man with gray hair and kind eyes. He'd delivered babies on Mars, treated plague victims on Europa, and patched up more bar fight injuries than he cared to remember. But this was new territory, even for him. John? Kate said something about an alien signal. Take a look. John transferred the data to Paul's station. The doctor studied the readings, his face growing more interested with each passing second. Biosigns, he murmured. These patterns, they're not random. There's a biological component to this transmission. Can you tell anything about what's sending it? Paul shook his head. Not from here, but whatever it is, it's in distress. These fluctuations in the signal strength, they're getting worse. The next hour passed slowly. John called a few more essential crew members to their stations. The weapons officer, the lead engineer, and the communications specialist all arrived within minutes. Word spread quickly through the ship. By the time they reached the asteroid field, half the crew was awake and monitoring the situation from their quarters. Visual range in 30 seconds, Kate announced. John stood and moved closer to the main viewport. The asteroids loomed ahead, chunks of rock and ice tumbling slowly through space. His eyes scanned the field, searching for anything unusual. There, Kate said. Grid reference 27 Mark IV. John saw it, a small shape nestled between two larger asteroids, definitely not natural. As they drew closer, details emerged. The object was a ship, but unlike anything in human design. Its hull curved and flowed like a living thing, with no sharp edges or obvious seams. The surface seemed to shimmer with an oily sheen that caught the starlight in strange ways. "Life signs?" John asked. Kate bent over her sensor array, adjusting the scanning frequency. "The hull material is interfering with our sensors, but I'm detecting something, very faint. Whatever's in there, it's barely alive." John felt the weight of the moment settle on his shoulders. First contact. Real first contact. Not microbes in Martian soil or algae under Europa's ice, but an intelligent species that built ships and traveled the stars. He thought of all the protocols, all the careful procedures humanity had developed for this moment. But protocols were written for meetings between equals, not for rescue operations. Out here, light years from Earth, he had to make a choice. "Prep a boarding team," he ordered. "Environmental suits, full medical kit. We're going over there." Paul looked up sharply. "John, the contamination risks are secondary to saving a life," John finished. "That's a distress signal, Paul. Someone's dying in that ship. I won't stand by and watch it happen." The bridge fell silent. Everyone understood the magnitude of what their captain was suggesting. This wasn't just a rescue mission. It was humanity's introduction to the galaxy. John turned to address his bridge crew. "I know what's at stake, I know the risks. But that signal isn't just data on a screen. It's someone calling for help. And ignoring it. That's not who we are. That's not what humanity stands for." He paused, meeting each of their eyes in turn. "Volunteers only for the boarding party. I won't order anyone to take this risk." Kate stood immediately. "I'm in." Paul sighed and raised his hand. "You'll need a doctor." One by one, others volunteered. John felt a surge of pride in his crew. They understood. In the vast darkness of space, compassion might be the only thing that truly mattered. As they prepared to board the alien vessel, the distress signal continued its weakening pulse. Time was running out. Whatever waited for them, in that ship, whatever form it took, it needed help, and humans had answered the call. The alien ship floated before them like a dying whale in an ocean of stars. John studied it through the viewport as his team prepared for boarding. The vessel wasn't large, maybe 30 meters from end to end, but every line and curve spoke of intelligence and purpose. "Look at those impact marks," Paul said, pointing to scars across the hull. "This ship's been traveling for a while. Years, maybe decades." John nodded. The damage told a story of a long journey through dangerous space. Whoever was inside had come very far from home. The boarding team assembled in the airlock. John checked his environmental suit one last time, making sure all seals were tight. Beside him, Paul ran through his medical equipment, while Security Chief Lisa Chen inspected her sidearm. Standard procedure, though John hoped they wouldn't need it. "Remember," John said, "we're here to help. Keep your movements slow and non-threatening. We don't know how they'll react to us." The airlock hissed open. The three humans pushed off into the void, their magnetic boots the only thing keeping them from drifting away. The distance between ships was only 50 meters, but it felt like miles. Below them, the asteroid field tumbled in its ancient dance, indifferent to the historic moment taking place above. They landed softly on the alien hull. Up close, the ship was even stranger. The surface felt warm through their gloves, and it seemed to pulse with a faint rhythm. Not metal, John realized. Not entirely. This was something between organic and artificial, a technology humanity had never imagined. "How do we get in?" Paul asked through the comm. Lisa was already searching. She ran her hands over the hull, looking for seams or panels. "Here," she called. "This section feels different." She pressed her palm against a slightly raised area. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hull began to move. A circular section dilated like an iris, revealing a small chamber within. "Airlock," John said. "They use the same concept we do." They entered carefully. The chamber was cramped, forcing them to stand close together. The outer door sealed behind them with a wet sound that made John's skin crawl. Lights flickered to life. Not electric bulbs, but patches of bioluminescence that glowed with a soft blue-green light. Atmosphere coming in, Paul reported, watching his scanner. Oxygen, nitrogen, high humidity, temperatures warm. Around 35 degrees Celsius. The inner door opened slowly. Beyond it lay a corridor that curved away into darkness. The walls were ribbed like the inside of a throat, and they pulsed with the same faint rhythm John had felt on the hull. Biosigns are stronger, Paul said. One life form. Very weak. It's this way. They moved forward, their boots making wet sounds on the floor. The corridor wasn't long. After 20 steps, it opened into a larger space. The ship's control center, John guessed. Organic panels covered the walls, displaying symbols that hurt to look at. In the center of the room, something moved. John saw her and froze. She lay curled on the floor, her body shaking with each breath. At first, his mind couldn't process what he was seeing. The creature was vaguely humanoid, 2 legs, a torso, a head. But that was where the similarity ended. She was covered in scales that should have shimmered like jewels, but had faded to dull gray. 4 arms wrapped around her swollen belly, protecting it even in her weakness. Her eyes opened at the sound of their approach. They were large, multifaceted, like an insect's, but filled with an emotion John recognized instantly. Fear. She's pregnant, Paul whispered. The alien mother tried to move away from them, but she was too weak. A sound came from her throat, clicks and harmonics that their translators couldn't decode. But the meaning was clear. She was terrified. John made a decision that went against every protocol he'd ever learned. Slowly, carefully, he reached up and removed his helmet. "John!" Lisa grabbed his arm. "What are you doing?" "She's scared," John said. "She needs to see we're not monsters." The air hit his face like a wet towel. Hot, humid, with a strange sweet smell that made his nose itch. But he could breathe. Paul had been right about the atmosphere. The alien mother's eyes fixed on his face. John smiled, a universal gesture he hoped, and held out his empty hands. "We're here to help," he said softly. She couldn't understand the words, but something in his tone must have reached her. The clicking sounds changed, becoming less frantic. Her body relaxed slightly, though she still protected her belly. Paul was already scanning her with his medical instruments. "She's dying," he said quietly. "Hypothermia. Her species needs higher temperatures than this, much higher. The ship's heating system must have failed. Can we save her? Maybe, if we can raise her core temperature quickly enough. But John, we don't know anything about her physiology. I could do more harm than good." John looked at the alien mother. Her breathing was getting shallower. The scales on her arms had started to flake away, revealing pale skin underneath. She was running out of time. "What about the baby?" Paul's scanner beeped. "Still alive. But it won't survive if she dies. Their life signs are linked somehow." The mother made another sound, a low musical note that seemed to come from deep in her chest. Her eyes never left John's face. One of her arms reached out, trembling with the effort. John understood. This wasn't about her anymore. She was asking them to save her child. Without thinking, he moved closer. The alien didn't pull away. John knelt beside her and carefully took her outstretched hand. Her skin was cold, far too cold for any living thing. "Paul," he said, "what's the fastest way? To warm her up? A direct heat transfer. But John, we don't know if..." "She's dying, Paul. We have to try something." John began unsealing his suit. The heavy fabric fell away, leaving him in the thin undersuit all astronauts wore. The alien mother watched with those strange, beautiful eyes as he lay down beside her. "John," Lisa said, "this is crazy." Maybe it was. But as John carefully put his arms around the alien mother, sharing his human warmth with her cold body, he knew it was the right thing to do. She stiffened at first, then gradually relaxed. Her scales began to change color, shifting from gray to a pale blue. "It's working," Paul breathed. "Her temperature's rising. Slowly, but it's rising. The alien mother made that musical sound again. This time it sounded almost like a song. A lullaby, perhaps, for the child she carried. John held her gently as she sang, feeling the barriers between species dissolve in the simple act of one being comforting another. Outside the ship, the stars continued their eternal dance. Inside, in the warm darkness, humanity took its first step toward a larger universe. Time moved differently in the alien ship. John couldn't tell if minutes or hours had passed as he held the dying mother. Her body trembled against his, waves of hot and cold running through her scales. Paul worked frantically with his medical equipment, trying to understand her alien biology. Her core temperature's stabilizing, Paul reported. But it's not enough. She needs more heat than a human body can provide. The mother's large eyes fluttered open. She looked at John with something like wonder, as if she couldn't believe what he was doing. One of her forearms moved slowly, reaching for something at her side. Careful, Lisa warned, her hand moving to her weapon. But the alien wasn't reaching for a weapon. Her fingers found a small pouch attached to her belt. With effort, she pulled out a flat device about the size of a datapad. Its surface glowed with soft light. She held it out to John, making a sound that was almost like a question. "She wants to show us something," John said. The device activated at his touch. Images appeared in the air above it, holographic pictures that moved and shifted. John saw star systems, planets, and then creatures like her. Thousands of them, living in cities that seemed to grow from the ground like trees. "Her people," Paul breathed. "She's showing us her home." The images changed. Now they showed the mother herself, younger and healthier. Her scales bright blue-green. She stood with others of her kind in what looked like a ceremony. They were touching a large crystalline egg. That's her child, John realized. Before implantation. The alien mother made a soft sound of agreement. Her hand moved over the images, and they changed again. This time they showed her alone in the ship traveling through space. The pictures moved faster, star after star passing by, the journey growing longer and longer. Then disaster, an asteroid field, impacts on the ship's hull, systems failing one by one, the heating elements dying, leaving her in the cold darkness of space. The final image showed the ship's power core cracked and leaking energy. The mother pointed to it, then to her swollen belly, and made a gesture John understood perfectly. She was choosing to use the last of the ship's power to protect her child, even though it meant her own death. "We need to get them both to our ship," John said. "Paul, can she be moved?" Paul shook his head. Moving her could kill them both. The stress on her system. I don't think she'd survive it. The mother seemed to understand. She touched John's face with one cool hand, then pointed to her belly. Her meaning was clear. "Forget about me. Save my child." "No," John said firmly. "We save both of you." He activated his comm unit. "Kate, this is Miller. I need you to send over portable heating units, all of them. And get engineering to prep a power transfer cable. We're going to jumpstart this ship." "Captain," Kate's voice crackled through the comm. "That's not in the protocols. To hell with protocols. Make it happen." The mother's eyes widened. She seemed to understand that these strange beings were going to try to save her ship. She struggled to sit up, pointing to various panels around the room. Her clicks and harmonics grew more urgent. Paul pulled out his scanner. "I think she's trying to tell us how her systems work." Lisa moved to the nearest panel. "These symbols, they're not random. Look, this one appears near anything that looks like a power conduit." Working together, the three humans began to decode the basics of the alien technology. The mother guided them with gestures and sounds, her strength fading but her determination growing stronger. Within an hour, the Novadawn's crew had run power cables between the two ships. The portable heating units arrived, filling the alien vessel with blessed warmth. The mother's scales began to shift color again, from pale blue to deeper green. "Temperature's rising," Paul reported. "Her vital signs are improving. But John, there's something else." "What is it?" Paul's face was grave. "The pregnancy. It's not what we thought. Her body is changing, transforming. It's like she's converting her own tissue to create a protective shell for the offspring. John looked at the alien mother. She met his gaze and nodded slowly. She had known all along. This wasn't just pregnancy, it was metamorphosis. She would die, but in dying she would become the egg that protected her child. How long does she have? John asked. Days. Maybe less. The process is already advanced. The mother reached for her device again. New images appeared. Instructions, John realized. She was teaching them how to care for the egg that she would become. What temperature it needed, what nutrients, how long until hatching. She's entrusting us with her child, Lisa said softly. She's asking us to be its guardians. The weight of that responsibility settled on John's shoulders. This wasn't just about saving lives anymore. It was about becoming part of something larger, a bridge between two species. The mother's hand found John's again. She squeezed gently and he felt something pass between them. Not words, but understanding. Mother to parent, across the vast gulf of species. We'll take care of your child, John promised. You have my word. The mother's musical sounds grew, softer, almost like a lullaby. Her eyes began to close, but this time not from weakness. She was at peace. Over the next several hours, they worked to stabilize the ship's systems. The power transfer gave the vessel new life, but they all knew it was temporary. The mother grew weaker as her transformation accelerated. Her scales fell, away in sections, revealing crystalline structures underneath. Paul monitored the process with a mixture of scientific fascination and deep sadness. She's becoming something beautiful, he said. The egg will be like a living jewel, her final gift to her child. As the transformation neared its end, the mother gestured one last time to the device. A final image appeared, star charts showing a route through space. Not to her home, John realized, but to a meeting point. Others would come for the child. But there was more. The charts showed multiple routes, all converging on the same location. This wasn't just about one child. This was a first contact protocol. Her people had been searching for others, and now they had found humanity. The mother's eyes found John's one last time. In them, he saw gratitude, trust, and something else. Hope. Hope that her child would know a universe where strangers could become family, where compassion crossed all boundaries. As her transformation entered its final phase, John held her hand and whispered, "Thank you. For trusting us. For showing us we're not alone." The ship filled with soft light as the mother completed her change. Where she had lain now rested a beautiful crystalline egg, pulsing with gentle warmth. Inside, John could see the shadow of new life waiting to emerge. They had witnessed something sacred, a mother's ultimate sacrifice and a species' first step toward friendship with humanity. The universe suddenly felt smaller and infinitely more wonderful. The crystalline egg pulsed with soft light in the center of the alien ship's control room. John stood watch over it while Paul ran continuous scans and Lisa coordinated with the Nova Dawn. 3 days had passed since the mother's transformation, and the egg grew warmer each hour. "Captain," Kate's voice came through the comm. "We're detecting multiple ship signatures approaching. They're using the same frequency modulation as our friend here." John felt his heart race. The star charts had been accurate. The mother's people were coming. How many? 3 vessels. Much larger than this scout ship. They'll reach us in approximately 6 hours. John looked at the egg. Would they be angry? Would they see humanity's involvement as interference? Or would they understand that he had tried to save one of their own? "Prepare the crew," John ordered. "Full first contact protocols, and Kate, have all our scan data about the mother ready to transmit. They need to know what happened here." The waiting was the hardest part. John refused to leave the egg, even to eat. He talked to it sometimes, telling it about Earth, about humanity, about the mother's bravery. He didn't know if the developing child could hear him, but it felt right. Paul joined him after a few hours. The egg's internal temperature is rising faster now. I think hatching might be soon. Will it happen before they arrive? Hard to say. This process is unlike anything in our database. The egg pulsed brighter, as if responding to their voices. John placed his hand on its surface. It was warm now, almost hot. He could feel movement inside. "Your people are coming," he whispered to the egg. "You'll be with your own kind soon." The first Therian ship emerged from hyperspace, like a whale breaching the ocean of stars. It was massive, easily 10 times the size of the Nova Dawn. Its organic hull rippled with patterns of light that seemed almost like communication. "They're scanning us," Kate reported. "Deep scans, they're reading everything, our ship, the scout vessel, even our biological signatures." "Let them," John said. "We have nothing to hide." The scan lasted several minutes. Then suddenly the Therian ship's light patterns changed. They became slower, gentler. A new signal came through the comm system. Not the distress call they'd first heard, but something else. Music. Sad and beautiful. "They're mourning," Paul said softly. "They know she's gone." The egg pulsed in rhythm with the alien music. John felt tears in his eyes. The mother was gone, but her sacrifice had brought 2 species together. A new transmission arrived, this time with video. The screen showed a Therian, similar to the mother but larger, with deep purple scales. When it spoke, the universal translator finally had enough data to work. "Humans," the alien said, the word strange in its mouth. "You tried to save Guardian Zyra. You gave her comfort in her final transformation. This is unexpected." John stepped forward. "I'm Captain John Miller. We answered her distress call. We couldn't save her, but we've protected her child. The egg is safe." The Therian's large eyes blinked slowly. "I am Commander Thylex. Guardian Zyra was my..." The word does not translate. "Sister of the same teaching, perhaps. You showed her kindness when you had no obligation to do so." "She was a mother in distress," John said simply. "That's obligation enough." Commander Thylex made a sound that might have been surprise. "You shared your body heat with her. In our culture, this is intimate, reserved for family. Yet you did this for a stranger. She was dying, she was scared. What else could I do?" The egg pulsed brighter. Cracks appeared in its crystalline surface. The hatching was beginning. "The child comes," Thylex said. "With your permission, we will board your vessel. The child should see both species when it emerges. It should know the story of its birth." Within an hour, a delegation of Therians stood in the alien scout ship. They were taller than humans, moving with a grace that seemed to defy their size. Their scales shifted color constantly, a form of communication Paul was frantically trying to decode. Commander Thylex approached John. In her 4 hands, she carried a small crystal that pulsed with inner light. "Guardian Zyra left this for whoever aided her," Thylex said. "She encoded it during her final hours. It is her memory stone, the collective knowledge of her family line. By our laws, whoever receives this becomes part of that family." John accepted the crystal with trembling hands. It was warm, like a living thing. "I don't understand. I'm not Therian. How can I be part of her family?" "Family is not only blood," Thylex said. "It is choice, it is action. You chose to comfort her. You acted to save her child. The stone recognizes this." The egg's cracks widened. Light spilled out, filling the room with rainbow patterns. Everyone, human and Therian alike, stepped back as the shell began to fall away. Inside was a small being, no bigger than a human infant. Its scales were clear as glass, revealing swirling colors underneath. Large eyes opened, looking around. With newborn wonder, the child saw John first. It made a soft sound, not quite Therian, not quite human. Something new. "The child bonds with the first being it sees," Thylex explained. "This is another gift Guardian Zyra gave. The child will know both our species as family." John knelt beside the newborn. It reached out with one tiny hand, grasping his finger. The touch sent a shock through him, not pain but connection, understanding. For a moment, he saw through. The child's eyes felt its awareness of two species standing together. "What happens now?" John asked. Commander Thylex's scales shifted to warmer colors. "Now we talk. We learn. Guardian Zira's mission was exploration, seeking other intelligent life. She found you, and in her death, she gave us something precious. First, contact based on compassion, not conflict." The child made another sound, and this time the translator caught it. A single word in a language that was already evolving, already bridging two species. Family. John looked around the room. Humans and Therians stood together, watching the first child of two worlds. Outside, more ships were arriving, both human and Therian. Scientists, diplomats, and curious souls from both species, drawn by the story of a dying mother and the humans who showed her kindness. The memory stone in John's hand pulsed warmly. He understood now. This wasn't just about saving one life. It was about proving that in the vast darkness of space, compassion could be the strongest force of all. The child gurgled happily, unaware of its historic significance. It just knew it, was surrounded by family, a family that spanned the stars. The child grew quickly. Within hours it could stand. Within days it spoke words from both languages. The Therians called it Kaimara, which meant Bridge of Stars. The humans simply called the child Kai. 2 weeks after first contact, John stood in the observation deck of Therian command ship Luminous Dawn. Beside him, Commander Thylex watched as human and Therian scientists worked together in the lab below. They were studying the memory stone, learning from Zira's lifetime of knowledge. "Your people learn quickly," Thylex said, "and they share freely. This is unusual in the galaxy." "How so?" John asked. "Most species guard their knowledge. They fear others will use it against them. But your scientists teach ours, and ours teach yours. No hesitation." John smiled. "Zira taught us something important. Fear divides. Trust unites." Little Kai ran into the observation deck, scales shimmering with excitement. The child moved between human and Therian with equal comfort, speaking a mixture of both languages that everyone somehow understood. "John, Thylex, look what I learned." Kai's small hands moved in complex patterns. Above them, holographic shapes appeared. Stars, planets, mathematical equations. "Very good," Thylex said, her scales shifting to proud yellow. "You'll be a fine guardian one day." Kai beamed and ran to John, climbing into his lap. The child felt almost weightless, bones hollow like a bird's. "Tell me about Mother Zira again," Kai asked. John had told this story many times, but he never tired of it. "Your mother was brave. She traveled far from home to find new friends among the stars. When her ship was damaged, she could have given up. But she didn't. She sent out a call for help. And you answered," Kai said, eyes wide. "We answered. And when I found her cold and afraid, I did what any person would do. I shared my warmth." "Not any person," Thylex interrupted. "We have met other species. Many would have studied her as she died, and some would have taken her technology. You gave comfort. This is why the memory stone accepted you." The memory stone pulsed in John's pocket. He'd learned to understand its signals, the way it responded to emotions and thoughts. It was teaching him about Therian culture, just as he taught it about humanity. Through the viewport, Earth hung in space beside the Therian homeworld. A permanent gateway had been established between the two systems, allowing instant travel. In just 2 weeks, the two species had become partners. "The Council has made a decision," Thylex announced. "Kai will be raised by both species. 6 months with humans, 6 months with Therians. They will be our ambassador, the living bridge between our peoples." John nodded. He'd expected this. Kai was special, the first being to truly belong to both worlds. "And you," Thylex continued, "the Council names you first friend. In all our history, no alien has held this title. You will always be welcome among us." That evening, John found himself back on the Nova Dawn. His crew gathered in the mess hall, listening as he recounted the day's events. The ship felt different now. Not smaller, but cozier. They weren't alone in the universe anymore. Paul raised his glass. To Zira. She gave her life to bring our species together. To Zira, everyone echoed. Kate added. And to the captain, who proved that humanity's greatest strength isn't our weapons or our technology. It's our hearts. John felt the memory stone warm in his pocket. Sometimes, late at night, he could almost hear Zira's voice in its pulse. Thank you, it seemed to say, for showing kindness to a stranger, for becoming family. The stars outside looked different now. Each point of light might hide new friends, new families waiting to be discovered, and humanity would meet them with open arms, carrying Zira's legacy forward. In his quarters, John found a message from Kai on his datapad. The child had drawn a picture. 2 figures holding hands, one human, one Therian. Underneath, in careful letters, Kai had written, "Family is bigger than worlds." John smiled and looked out at the stars. Somewhere among them, other mothers were, traveling through the dark searching for new life. And if they called for help, humanity would answer because that's what family does.